Marketing Dividends, presented by the Australian Association of National Advertisers, inspiring responsible, innovative and respected marketing.
Well, Australians love their luxury cars. It is a growing market rife with marketing opportunities. But how will the messaging have to adapt to a future when driverless cars are a reality? Well, James Hier, CEO of MEC, joins me now, along with Lexus Corporate Manager and Marketing Operations, Adrian Weimers. Gents, a pleasure to have you on board. Adrian, I'll start with you. Luxury cars, we seem to love them, growing almost exponentially. Why? Why do we love your cars?
James, you're going to be very surprised, but it's actually affordability.
Ah.
Like most luxury brands these days, cars have followed suit, and actually what they've done is they've brought down their price of entry. So in the past, you'd have seen luxury cars predominantly being large sedans, but these days you can get everything from a small hatchback to a small SUV. And as a consequence of that, we're seeing an influx of people that have come from mass brands. In fact, there's about 60% of all the inflow into luxury car brands are from people that have never owned luxury before. So it's quite staggering. And I think as a consequence of that, we even have the luxury car tax and the thresholds at $65,000. But almost half of the sales are less than that price point. And if cars are considered fuel efficient, that threshold actually raises to $75,000. And I think it's about 75% of sales are less than that point as well. So I think this relative affordability is probably what's driving it. And I think there's probably one more thing, which is the perennial love affair that Australians have with SUVs. And without a doubt, the luxury car market is booming because of this growth, particularly in the compact size SUV. So affordable, small SUVs are effectively the fire behind the engine that's driving the growth of the luxury car market.
The growth, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, perennially dominating this area. What are you doing to close this gap?
Look, I think we have to follow suit where the segments are shifting and changing, and we have just recently introduced a subcompact SUV called the NX, and we're seeing some amazing growth out of that. We've just recently introduced another remodeled larger SUV called the RX, and again there's some good volume there. And next year we're going to launch this really stunning coupe, the LC500H, which is more of a halo kind of car. The other thing that we're doing is we're going back to our roots, which is, you know, great cars, fine quality, but also good customer service. And you know, our dealers provide an amazing consumer service, so much so that we've won the Roy Morgan Award twice in a row. So we're going to go back and reinvest and ensure that we do provide the best customer service in luxury cars.
Sorry, James, go ahead.
But it's beyond just those three, though. I mean, Australia is one of the most competitive car markets in the world.
Look, true. I mean, you know, the last count that I did, there were 65 car brands here in Australia.
Oh, good.
And I think consumers could choose about 350 models. So as a marketer, your approach has to change considerably. You know, car brands have, I guess, have focused on launch of new vehicles and then kind of move away. But these days you have to focus on, you know, winning top of mind share. So everything you do has to be around recency, and your whole flighting and marketing strategy has to change accordingly.
How do you balance, I suppose, you were talking about affordability, so on the affordability on one hand to drive, I assume, higher sales versus maintaining that brand in that as a prestige brand? I mean, does the affordability potentially subtract from the prestige end?
Look, I think there's a really interesting dynamic which you've hit on, and that's when you buy a luxury car, you're buying kind of social currency, status and privilege, but equally you're buying exclusivity as well, right? So there is definitely that chance that as luxury cars become more common, that sense of exclusivity diminishes. But I think at the moment the balance is probably there. I think what luxury car brands will do is they'll shift and evolve, and they'll provide that exclusivity moving forward.
You've come from mainstream car marketing to luxury car marketing. What's the difference?
One word, and that's tonality, I think. I think, to your point, James, preserving your prestige and your luxury credibility you have to do all the time. And, you know, in the case of luxury car brands, you're often mixing on a very personal level with customers. You have golf days, drive programs, all that kind of stuff. So the way you present your luxury credibility has to be maintained, absolutely.
Moving to a younger demographic, looking at your future sales, a lot of talk of millennials and the share economy, less home ownership, less car ownership.
Look, millennials as a target are really interesting. I don't necessarily agree with everything that's been written about them. We're seeing in luxury car sales at the moment, 20% of all car sales go to people less than 35. So that's kind of that demographic. I think they've grown up with luxury vehicles, particularly luxury goods as aspiration. So I don't think their desire to own luxury vehicles will diminish. More broadly speaking, would I target a marketing strategy around them? I don't think necessarily that would be the case, but I think that millennials actually are tastemakers, and I think there's a lot that you can learn from them to shift and change your approach to presenting your brand.
Does a range of models and a scale of pricing, I mean, do you look to target people early on when they go from an age into the car market and then maintain them as they get older and you assume their income increases, they upgrade and become brand loyal? I mean, is that something targeted as well by marketing?
Look, most definitely. I think within the luxury car franchise, that's actually quite a valid model. I think when you look at cars above, say, $80,000, the percentage of loyal sales versus Conquest, particularly from mass brands, is probably skewed towards loyal sales. It's below that threshold where you're bringing people first time into luxury cars. And I think that's a very, very good model that luxury car brands are implementing right now. Bring them in while they're young and then move them up through more expensive models later in their stage of life.
Luxury is all about the experience, the drive, and if you take that and we again look forward towards self-driving cars, automation, how does that detract from the luxury mark?
Look, I actually don't think it's an either-or option. I think you can get both. I think in the future it will become a case of whether your brand has an autonomous car or not. And then there'll be a case of what sort of autonomy is built into that vehicle and the kind of safety smarts, etc. I think the more interesting question that is perhaps implicit in what you've asked there is how will the autonomous cars change in terms of car ownership and the share economy? I think when you think about autonomous cars linked to intelligent transport systems where the road is talking to you and telling you there's a traffic jam ahead, and you can divert cars en masse automatically away from that. I think that's really interesting. And I think that will disrupt the way we see cars. But I think that's probably 2 decades away.
So to go 2 decades away to today, you've got better sales this year on year against 2015. You've repositioned, but the luxury car market is growing. How do you attribute what's actually growing Lexus?
Look, really good question. We've actually run a couple of attribution models. We've picked 2 different periods, one prior to that reposition and then one post that reposition. And what we're seeing is that our return on marketing investment specifically has increased by 10%. So that's a great outcome and I think a testament to the reposition. But the other thing we discovered within the attribution model is that you can split out marketing investment that drives short-term sales versus marketing investment that returns long-term brand equity, and that return on investment for the long-term brand equity has actually doubled. So that really kind of supports the whole repositioning strategy. And so when I go into our financial negotiations with our CEO this year, I will certainly be making that case.
And obviously the disruption of the path to purchase through digital. How are you sailing these new seas with the way that the car category has changed?
Look, I think digital has, without a doubt, disrupted the path to purchase for car consumers. I think, we've got a lot of research that basically says that you start off with 2 brands, you add, you subtract, and then you buy something that is completely different to what you started out with. So I think you have to work out what are the moments that you need to win and that you can change people's direction.
And you've got the ROI, and I understand that from a digital journey. There's lots of measurability in there, but you're in a whole number of sponsorships, the Melbourne Cup, Carnival and the like. How are you doing attribution in these areas, which certainly manage tonality and reputation? I'm not sure about the bottom line.
Harder to evaluate there, but our attribution model actually took that into account as well. And we know that the Melbourne Cup for us is a massive brand experience where people can understand what we epitomise and value, whether it be hospitality or great design or craftsmanship. And we use and amplify that through social media and normal media. So the return on investment from media is something that we attribute to that and know there's a positive investment there for us.
All right. Well, Adrian Weimers, really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks very much. And James Hier, a pleasure as absolutely always. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James.
That is it for Marketing Dividends for now. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the markets as we head towards the close. Stay with us.
Marketing Dividends, presented by the Australian Association of National Advertisers, inspiring responsible, innovative and respected marketing.